on what hiring leaders can do right now, how you all are thinking about next year and beyond, and maybe some of your predictions for what 2022 is going to look like. So Kirti, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, I do think that for 2022, we are going to have to be open-minded to flexibility, because that's really what people are looking for, especially as marketers. Number two, I think we are going to have to think about creating meaningful human interactions. And what I mean by that is whether we do it virtually, whether we bring people together 2 or 3 times a year, I think human interaction is going to still matter. And so we're going to need to figure out the meaningful way to do that. And number three, I think because of just like the constant movement, and I tend to be, I think you picked up that I am a hardcore digital marketer. I think digital is just constantly moving stuff around, optimizing things, creating new tools and stuff. So I think it's going to be about like, how do we train? How do we, upskill or reskill folks? I do think the idea of a marketing generalist is going to go out the door. I felt like that a few years ago, frankly, where you can't come in and just say, I only do brand. Nope, that doesn't work. You're going to need to know brand with data, with digital, with all of that. And same thing for, other type of marketing functions that exist. I think there needs to be cross-pollinated intelligence, and that's going to definitely be a required trend moving forward.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of debate about generalists versus specialists, but I tend to lean on the side of the specialists as well.
The
only other plug.
Extra special generalists is what they're going to have to be.
Yeah, the only other plug into that, I think, is I think for hiring leaders and organizations to be successful, at least in the short term, as we do have this supply gap, knowing what the skills are early and planning for that as early as possible, and giving those requisitions and skills to talent acquisition so they can build out a strategy early so that it's not so reactive all the time. A lot of organizations constantly are reactive to what their needs are, but really doing some true strategic workforce planning, especially now, is critical to be successful.
So Maggie, when I think about this, I think about, look, on-demand labor will continue its slow and steady growth, maybe at a slightly accelerated pace. We know remote work has exploded, going from 3% of the labor force to about 8%, but flexible work up towards 33%. And so as people are thinking about their workforce planning, you need to take into account all these different trends. You want to be an employer of choice in this regard, especially when there's an acute labor shortage, although that will pass, but you still want to win the war for talent by being an employer of choice. And I will tell you, the companies that I see do that are the companies that have a well-defined culture, that they have a culture document about who they are, why they're here, where they're going, what they stand for, and all the policies and procedures that back that up. And to Kirti's point, if that means turning your computer off at 12 o'clock on a Friday, that's what your culture is, great. But you have to really mean it. Because if you then have a boss sending an email at 3 o'clock, then you're like, well, this is all bullshit. So being authentic and being very clear and deliberate about what that culture is will help you build the glue that will keep your workforce together, regardless if it's on demand, regardless if it's remote, where you're working, how you're working. And as work continues to evolve, if you have a well-defined culture, you're going to be in a much better spot.